Tonight we have one Republican, maybe the only Republican in Rhode Island, who's actually battling on the issues. Welcome into my State of Mind. I am Dan York on this beautiful pre-summer Monday evening. Patricia Morgan is my guest. She is the state representative from Coventry, and she has been, really getting after issues like the convention center and its cumulative cost. She wants you to be able to vote on a new McCoy Stadium in Providence. And of course, she's on top of the fire issues in Coventry, which are changing every minute. She'll be my guest tonight. So welcome in. Great to have you aboard. Thanks very much. Let's check the rundown and talk about some of the things that are on our agenda today. The fire overtime debate is raging on here. Here's the headline in the newspaper today. Jorge Elorza says, okay, we are going to be flat broke by 2021 if we don't start doing some things like changing the way we pay firefighters. Now, you may remember we were here on Friday night with Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee, North Providence Mayor Charlie Lombardi, and Firefighter Union President Paul Dowdy. And Lombardi and Dowdy were talking about the logic of this 4-to-3 platoon shift move. If you've got firefighters that are working, say, round numbers 40 hours, and then you move them to 50 hours, it seems to me you got to pay them for the balance of the 10, right? That makes sense. That's what Charlie and Paul were agreeing on.
As we're crunching our numbers, we are calculating more pay per hour per firefighter to see if this will work and what the savings would be in the town of North Providence.
Your hours are directly tied to your shifts. So Mayor Lombardi may be able to shift from 4 to 3 and realize some other savings without making us work more. That's what's lost in the discussion. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. Maybe he can reduce supervision or hire less firefighters or something else. But what Mayor Elorza did is took 2 steps. He said, I'm going to reorganize and I'm not going to pay you for the extra hours you work.
All right, so that's been the assertion. Well, Jorge Elorza, the mayor of Providence, got a little upset about that today. He had a press conference, and he was talking about the 2 pieces of legislation that have sponsored all this controversy. One is the notion that collective bargaining would dictate whether you can move from 4 to 3 shifts in any community, a state law directing the towns to collectively bargain rather than make their own management decision, and a second one that makes overtime pay happen for all hours over 42 a week. Those are the 2 bills in the hopper that have everybody upset. Now, Elorza is saying, well, look, I don't know about this. I'm not going to pay him. Of course I'm going to pay him.
This all stems from a letter that I sent them when I decided to reorganize. And when I sent them the letter, I told them that I look forward to bargaining in good faith. So we started the negotiations right where their salary are, but I understand that if they're going to work more, they deserve to get paid more. And the suggestion that I am not looking to pay them more is patently false.
But the suggestion that you're starting the negotiation at where they are means that you're starting at $0 for an extra 14 hours a week that you're proposing that they work under a new platoon shift. All the answers seemingly are in secret. Next item, the former Speaker of the House, Gordon Fox, is headed to jail next week. How long he actually goes for has to do with the sentencing. Here's the headline: letters call for leniency. This is a protocol that happens in all of the federal cases. It's rather perfunctory, but the list is always interesting. The people who actually write in and suggest that, you know what, he might have done something wrong, but he's actually a pretty good guy. If you really knew him, you know that he really shouldn't be going to jail. He's lucky he's not doing 30, because that's what the statute calls for. It looks like he's going to do 3, no matter who writes what on what letter. Quick triggers. The Boston police and the DA in Suffolk County held a press conference today. Very interesting. Here's the headline in the BostonGlobe.com. Video shows the Roslindale shooting of Usama Rahim. He is the gentleman who might have had some ISIS intentions and who could have been plotting and allegedly was plotting to behead a police officer. Well, they got him at a local CVS parking lot. 4 officers, well, a couple of officers and FBI agents armed found him at a CVS parking lot. And at my first glance at the video, I was thinking, ooh, man, did they have to shoot him? Now listen, it's not like I'm defending this guy, but did they have to shoot him? And all of a sudden, I had a revelation. But here was the police commissioner and the video, and think about it here.
Came about real quick. I think he was intent, as the affidavit says, on getting a boy in blue. And I don't think at this point he was going to go down very easy. There were multiple requests for him to put down that weapon. He was intent on taking out somebody, and it was either us or them.
Yeah, it seems like he violated the 21-foot rule, which I didn't know anything about until I asked the same question on the radio today. And police officers who are trained in this environment tell me that the space between somebody who's got a knife and somebody who's got a gun, usually the officer with a gun and somebody with a knife, the general rule is 21 feet. Because in that 21-foot space, if you make a move, it takes about the same time to be shot. So if the 21-foot rule applies, I think it is a good shooting. Not that any shooting ought to be considered good. Hey, you know what? You go to a ball game, there are some risks, really serious risks. On Friday night, a fan was injured. We've got the full screen, and there's the sign right there at Fenway. Be alert, foul balls and bats hurt. Who would have known? This poor lady just got drilled, didn't she?
When the bat broke, I saw it fly behind her, but then everybody, you could see rescue people coming down, ambulance people and like that to come down and started treating her. And then that's when they stopped the game.
Looked like the EMTs and everyone got there really, really quick and got her on the stretcher and got her out of there.
Ouch, ouch. I mean, ouch is not even, I mean, it's a serious injury. She's going to be okay. But, you know, listen, the good news about Fenway is that you're close to the action. The bad news about Fenway is that you're close to the action. You gotta be careful. By the way, read the back of the ticket. It says, we're not liable for anything. And it was 37 years until this past Saturday, and down the stretch they came. American Pharoah never looked back. It was pretty cool to watch.
American Pharoah galloped into the history books at Saturday's Belmont Stakes, winning the Triple Crown.
The 37-year wait is over. American Pharoah is finally the one.
The last time a horse won the Triple Crown was in 1978, when Affirmed captured the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont Stakes. Since then, 12 horses were in the winner's circle for the Derby and Preakness, but failed at Belmont Park.
This is, you know, the graveyard of champions.
In addition to the fans at Belmont, fans all over America on televisions were watching this thing, where I was watching it at the local tavern that I watched the race at. People stood up spontaneously and cheered American Pharoah, despite not having money on him or having money against him, because he didn't pay very much. He was at 3 to 5. It was a phenomenal time, and you know what? You may never see another one like that in history, so it was nice to see one 37 years later. By the way, I hit the triple again. This one only paid for $1 tri-box, or $1 trifecta. It was $54.75. Bad news is I paid $60 to get the $54.75. You do the math. But it was fun anyway. Hey, when you got the right numbers on the right horses, it's fun anyway. Your state of mind is important to us. Just call us at 228-1886. Email us at stateofmind@myiTV.com. Facebook post, tweet. Here's a Facebook post, I believe, in response to our Friday night show. What percentage of the General Assembly are union members or reps for teachers, fire, and police? I think there's a definite conflict of interest when it comes to introducing bills or enacting laws that relate directly to these groups. I understand many of them are hardworking individuals, but the taxpayers cannot continue to support high salaries and overtime, generous benefits, and pensions with COLAs. I don't know what the exact number of firefighters, teachers, police in the General Assembly is on short notice here, but I do know that there's a labor flavor there, and if you don't like the labor flavor there, you got to run for office without a labor flavor, right? When we come back, State Representative Patricia Morgan. She is not a labor flavor. She is in the General Assembly. Stay with us. She certainly is speaking out a lot, and frankly, she might be the only Republican with a voice box these days. It's really, well, I can't blame her. I can certainly look at the others and say, hello, is there anybody in there? Here's the latest press release that Patricia Morgan, has put out, thinking that, you know, we ought to take a vote on whether or not we're going to move a sports franchise into Providence. It is good to see you again. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Are you the only Republican who actually has a voice box these days? Because it sounds like your voice is alone in the wilderness.
No, they're speaking, but I'm actually I think I'm working really hard to try to elevate some issues that I think will help Rhode Islanders. How's that? I'm working hard at this.
You want to see? I know you work hard all the time. Some people think you're nuts.
I'm not.
I know I can get you to laugh on that one. You want us to do a referendum for moving the paw socks?
Yeah, yes? So what's nuts about that? There's nothing nuts about that.
No, I think a lot of people, look, I was saying to somebody this weekend and talking about it because people are still asking me, Dan, what do you think is going to happen? And I don't know, but I will say this: I've never seen, all due respect, and God bless Jim Skeffington, what a shocking development it was for him to pass away. Mm. But in totality, that organization, the new ownership, has done enough to give away a lot of the goodwill that it has had in this state by the ask that they came with. And,
yeah,
and now who knows what the hell is
horrible
going on,
deal,
right? Well, what is going on? What are you hearing?
I think it's probably on life support at this point, but I don't think it's dead. And I think the people really need to stay very vigilant, right? Email, phone, write letters, keep doing what they're doing. All those petitions that they're delivering, I think they're delivering them tomorrow. I think that's important. Elected officials, the decision makers have to know how much people don't want that deal.
What petitions are being delivered? The ones that paw socks are generating?
No, that the coalition group is delivering. They're delivering a bunch of petitions tomorrow.
That say?
Thousands and thousands of signatures that say they don't want a new stadium in Providence.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. It's $120 million to build it. What, $40 million for a parking garage, infrastructure movement?
No.
People should have a choice.
That's not the number. The number is
$300 million.
What? No, the number is $85 million to build the stadium and then the parking lot, right? It's $85 million. They wanted
120.
They wanted 120 over 30 years net.
Okay.
That's what they wanted.
But then they wanted a parking garage.
Inside, they want to build the stadium for 70, and then $10 million for the stadium parking lot, and then they've got the infrastructure problem. So they got about $85 million proposal.
$90 million for no
they
taxes.
They wanted $4 million net for 30 years. Got that. They're not going to get it, so we should stop talking about it.
Okay,
so,
deal.
Right. We should. That's not going to happen. Correct?
I don't think so.
Even Nick Mattiello, who approved the concept before he even saw the numbers, is not going to be able to make that deal work. Don't do what?
Go ahead.
That's the way he talks. Hey, I like the concept, but I don't know about the thing. So I don't know.
I think,
regardless of the numbers, you want a referendum.
I think the people have it. It's their money. They should have the right to approve.
It's only their money if there's
reject.
A deal on the table that calls for their money.
That's right.
Right.
You asked me a long time ago when Skeffington first surfaced, what did I think should happen? And I said, well, if he uses his own money,
right,
no big deal. We're out of it. But it should be all his money, all of their money. They're very wealthy men. So if they want to build this with all private, their money, and not guarantees or leases from the state, go for it.
But here's the thing.
But don't ask us for money.
Across the board, across the country, most of these deals do come with some kind of taxpayer subsidy. When I thought about subsidy at the beginning, before they threw their numbers out, I thought, okay, 195 land at a severe discount, or maybe even no charge. Some kind of stabilization on taxes, okay. But then cash flow from the state, I went, that is outrageous. Right. So I'm not, I get the concept of a referendum. I think your call might be premature, but if there's another ask for state money of any sizable nature, I think your call might be appropriate for the referendum.
No, I think they should vote on it at any rate. People have a collective wisdom. If you get them the information, there's a collective wisdom there, believe it or not. It's their money. They care about it. I don't think people want the Paw Sox necessary to leave Rhode Island, but there's a fine stadium called McCoy Stadium up in Pawtucket. Maybe they would approve putting, a 10, 15, 20 million into McCoy Stadium to make it nicer.
These guys don't want that. So these guys are going to have
to figure out. But no other city wants them.
Oh, that's not true. Where's that information coming from?
Well, I had heard, I haven't talked to the other cities, but I had heard that Worcester had said, we're not going to give them that kind of money.
Springfield will lay out every multi-million-dollar plan they possibly can. They got a casino coming in, there's casino money coming in like crazy. Worcester has never been the option.
Oh, okay.
Springfield is the option.
Okay.
So I would think that that's what's going to happen. Anyway, listen, if there's another big financial ask from the taxpayers, I think it's feasible to ask about a referendum. These guys want this deal done this summer, even in a special session. What's your vibe? What are you hearing on the street? Is there something
I'm not hearing
for
anything.
A special section?
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything in particular. I still think the people need and have the right to decide whether their money will go into this or not. I do. You're not going to get me off of that dime. It's their money.
Well, I'm not
they
really
work
fighting
for
it.
that money.
It just seems to me we have to see what the deal is. And what's frustrating is that we don't know what the deal is right now. Gosh knows how they're rewriting it, if at all.
Gosh knows.
So speaking of money, the convention center has been a big conversation that you have started. We have a headline, or we have a, what do we have here? Yeah, okay, yes, PolitiFact. You got PolitiFacted. And interestingly enough, you know, most of what you've said is true. The cumulative cost of the convention center has been enormous for the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
But so is when you add up your annual salary. No matter what you make, if you do it for 20 or 30 years, it looks like a really a lot of money. So context is important, don't you think? What's bugging you about the Convention Center Authority?
I think it's poorly managed, and I think that it's just been drifting along. I'm not saying that we tear down the convention center, but I think it can do a lot better than it is doing. It is empty a lot of the time. They have way too much staff, I think, for the number of days that they're busy. And the salary
How many days a
structure,
year are they busy?
Days a year. I can tell you that they're empty about 60% of the time.
60% of the calendar?
Mm-hmm. I can't
in
do
totality?
the math in my head right now, so I'm sorry.
Well, 365 days in a year.
All
times
right.
60%, 36 times 6. So you say about 200 days out of the year, there's nothing going on there.
And some of the days that they are busy, that convention center building might be just a small meeting, a board meeting, 20 people. They're not making a lot of money from those kinds of events. Remember that the home show, the flower show, all of those, they existed before the convention center building was built. We didn't need that building to have a home show, flower show, car show, all those kinds of things. We didn't.
So the Convention Authority's got the Veterans Auditorium, it's got the Dunk, and it's got the Convention Center. What do you want to see done? I mean,
I want to see them be busier, right? When we asked them for their marketing plans for the last 6 years. And I'm not a marketing expert, so I took them to marketing experts. And they were lists of activities. There was no research on what's their competitive environment, what are their competitors doing, what are their strengths and weaknesses, how can they capitalize on strengths, how can they improve their marketing pitch, for lack of a word, their marketing strategy. It just wasn't there. So they need to start with the fundamentals. Do that research. Do they have competitors? Of course they do. But that doesn't mean you just say, well, we got competition. You have to go out there and fight for customers. You have to bring them in. You know, they spend $50,000 a year on personal selling, taking trips. There's no deliverables from that $50,000. That's a lot of trips, by the way.
So what do you want, a management change or a structural change?
I want them to do better, period. They can decide how they have to get there, but they need a marketing plan. They need people who will execute that marketing. They need to be held accountable.
And if not, then what?
Then they need new management. And I think the board of directors has really failed in holding their staff accountable. I mean, if you don't have to produce, are you going to put in the extra effort? They have to. And they say, okay, well, look, we're delivering this kind of economic stimulus. First of all, they take credit for everything that happens in Providence. And like water, fire, and the colleges, and PPAC don't exist. It's all about them.
But
right?
you don't believe that they ought to be making money annually?
I think they need to make more than they're making.
Okay, but you understand that facilities like that generally run a deficit.
I do understand that. But they don't have to be such a drag on us. I mean, $25 million this year, what could we do with that money if they weren't taking it? I bet the governor could think of things to do with it. I bet there could be a multiplier from that 25 million that we're not getting from an empty building. So they really just need to buckle down. They need to do a better job. They need to fill it up, get more customers in there.
Speaking of buckling down, someone's got to figure out these fire issues in your district. We'll be right back and talk about it. So here's what the chairman of the Central Coventry, actually the Coventry Fire Board, the Anthony Fire Board, has been saying.
Coming into this year, there was a deficit of $600,000 to $700,000, and there's a very good possibility we will have over $1 million deficit before this year is over.
So he, Mr. Palin, who I think will be on the program this week at some juncture, is calling for a complete dismantling of the Coventry Fire District as the state rep. Is that part of your representation?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Okay. What do you think about that?
You know, I haven't looked at all the numbers in depth. I have talked with Mr. Palin, and they've got a lot of debt. They've got a union that won't make the concessions that they need. What do you do at a certain point? There's not enough money. There's just not enough money to pay the bills.
What a mess the town of Coventry is when it comes to fire.
Yeah.
What's
well, it's the same
solution?
union. Honestly, there's Anthony, which is Mr. Palin, and then there's Central Coventry, which
Anthony,
I've been working on for 2.5 years.
Explain geographically. Anthony is what?
3 square miles, one station, and it's on the, well...
What part of town there?
It's on the border of West Warwick and Coventry.
Okay, right.
And then there's Central Coventry, which is the larger district.
Right.
It's about 18,000 people.
There's 7 districts, they merged to 4, and everything blew up.
Yeah. You know, there's one union, and it got too aggressive at getting wages and benefits. You know, they were able to manipulate the election system the way that board members were chosen. They got their special guys, firefighters and friends of firefighters on the board, and they just went crazy asking for wages and benefits. And the costs are exceedingly high. I mean, you can't go up 15, 18% a year. It's just not fair to the average person.
What's the long term? We only got a half a minute. What's the long term solution for Coventry's fire situation?
They actually have to get their house in order. They have to
How do you
live
do that when
within the ability.
Judges are running the show and trustees
Well,
are running the show, and the elected people aren't running the shows?
That's right. The elected officials in Central Coventry are not running the show. It is in Chapter 9 right now. It's going through that process.
And now this guy wants the Coventry board to do the same thing.
Well, and the bottom line is, those are just average people who live in those districts. They're good folks. They work hard. You have to provide services at the cost that they can afford. You can't just keep squeezing more and more out of them. It's just not fair.
Keep working hard.
I am.
Patricia Morgan.
Thank you.
One more thing and we come back. I will tell you, it's good to have at least one state representative on the Republican side who's squeaking a little bit. You may not like the squeak, but I like the action. And I will tell you that there are so many things going on in this state right now where you look for the Republican Party to actually step up and say, hey, 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 and nothing. So, you know, when State Representative Patricia Morgan is chatting things up, give her credit for the exercise. Never mind the details. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow at noon on WPRO. Back here at 7:30 tomorrow night. Thanks.